All right, here we go again. We'll delve into the government battle royale that goes on daily in most workplaces in the government, if not all.
You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
So the media and its psychological operation of hating on this person, not hating on that person as much. It's not that they don't hate Homan; they just hate Bavino more than they hate Homan. So, like the whole thing with Bavino and the U.S. attorney, I guess that was Jewish. Those kind of comments go on all the time. They just wanted to take out Bavino, or somebody did. Well, because then the Jewish guy goes, "Fool you, Bavino. You know, you take your own time and go do stuff. I didn't see you here last week while we were doing this, that, or the other thing." That's how the government works. So Homan, I don't know if Homan is actually doing what Bavino says he's doing. This is how the government works, because they just, throw shit at each other all day. But I mean, Bavino's right. Because the other system's crazy. Well, think about this. This immigrant, and again, there's ways to probably triage immigrants better than we did that first year. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have a crime that you're not deported. And I don't know if Homan's not deporting, and Mullen is not deporting people that don't have criminal histories. Because the other system is, again, I don't know what they're doing or not doing, but the other system's crazy though. Okay, you don't have a crime. You're here unlawfully, but you're part of a system and you're showing up, and that's fine. But think about this. The day you do commit a crime, now you're deportable. But what's the problem? You have to now go to a jail and go through that process. So yesterday you weren't deportable because you didn't commit a crime, but we arrested you today. Now we're going to deport you. It makes no sense. Based upon statistics of how many will commit crimes. My suggestion is an intelligence unit that can evaluate. You should have some way, an analysis of who somebody is. A job is not the be all. A job is used by narcotics distributors repeatedly to cover over the fact and laundering money, that they're getting money from narcotics. If you don't have a job and you have money, you can end up. That's how they used to arrest people. Pretty, now laundering's real big. But this guy lives in the middle of Baltimore, goes to the DEA car dealer, because DEA used to run car dealerships, and buys this big car, and they get to look at everything, because he came into us. Right. So they picked up money laundering and all the other things where it's more difficult for us to see them. But that's where the government was wanting more in to transactions of whatnot, so it can look closer at laundering operations. So again, the Democrats should still keep moving towards reforming the benefit programs if they ever want any more money. So Bezos shows up. That's pretty weird. Now, I never said Bezos was a bad guy. I just said they're counting him as white, but he's actually Latino. So we're saddled with Latino Bezos's income. And again, it is what it is. I'm not saying that it affects everybody, but there are people out there that because they're white, if we go along with the Democratic Party theory, shouldn't have money over a Latino who was actually part of a pretty wealthy set of people. If you ask me, you go to places like Florida, California, New Mexico, Latino people are filthy rich. But again, they're writing on that form that they're white, but when they go and they get benefits, they're Latino. Oh yeah, you're a priority because white people have all the money. Right? It's a scam. It's another one of the scams that are out there. And all these people, all these influencers, great. But I told you about 15, 20 years ago, beginning 15, 20 years ago, these programs were bullshit. That's how they're paying the deep state. Right. And creating these shake and bake millionaires that outposition us in the communities. And it did include government employees in the Marshal Service, the FBI, DHS, so on and so forth. Right. But this is all normal stuff. That's the funny part. Like, oh, look, Bovino Homan. There's a Bovino and Homan in every office. Right. But it used to be the media didn't have access. And of course, somebody like Bovino would just say it in the office, wouldn't say it online. Right. But again, you did him dirty, so now he's going to take action. Look, I don't care if he said something about Jewish people. I'd have said something back to him because that's how the government operates. But when they have somebody they want to take out, all of a sudden it says, oh! Right. So again, it's no big deal. But I do agree that you need to triage the people you deport, but you need to make sure you're getting people, that look like they're probably in the wrong place, the wrong time. And be honest. I mean, don't be playing a game with it. Well, because it doesn't make sense. You wait till somebody commits a crime, and then all of a sudden, where are you? Well, we have to do 10 years now, and then we deport them. So again, the tax dole and all that is affected. What we're doing is essentially this is what we need to do, and what I hope we're focusing on. We need to dial back the numbers so they're more manageable. There was a point when we were managing this. Right. And again, this whole Virginia thing, Virginia is no judge of anything related to illegal alienism. In the 1990s, that was one of the first. I'm sure it was in California too, but I was East Coast. That was one of the first places that was affected by immigrant sex crimes. I was noticing the increase, and that could be one of the reasons they took me out. I don't know. I mean, there's probably a bunch of reasons. I could see, but I didn't know I could see. You know what I mean? It isn't like seeing for my own life or seeing to the point of realizing what's going on. I just, as a law enforcement officer, I could see. And I started studying Virginia crimes by immigrants. I wasn't anti-immigrant at all. My wife was an immigrant. Yeah, for some reason, Southern Maryland and Northern Virginia welcomed immigrants and their criminal enterprises overwhelmingly, beginning in the 1990s. Your guess is as good as mine, and mine's pretty good. You've heard me over the years. Money. Somebody was paying somebody. That's how it works. But it doesn't work for the rest of us. So again, pay no attention to Bovino behind the curtain. The Wizard of CBP. It's strange this weather. Yesterday was like stifling. Oh, it's so hot, humid. And now it's freezing out there. Well, it's cold. It's rainy. No sun. Temperature's dropping compared to what it was yesterday. That's when the body notices it. So we just got to continually dial back those numbers so it's more manageable. I'm not saying they did anything wrong in the first year, but I think we could have figured something out a little bit more intelligently. But again, it's the second year, so every time, as years go by, you should be improving the operation. No, there's people everywhere that say the same thing that Bovino's saying. That kind of thing goes on all the time. It's just the deep state plays a game with it. If they don't like you, then it's a big deal. If they like you and you're a member of the deep state, nobody cares. Right. And they were doing a number on Bavino anyway. The deep state was as well. The media is part of the deep state. Right. So if the media wasn't involved, it would never went anywhere. But I think people on the inside are going to the outside media and reporting stuff that's not supposed to happen. And then they're not being prosecuted for leaking insider stuff. Right. Well, it doesn't make sense just to going after people we should focus on criminals. That's obvious. But you have to also focus on people that look like they're going to be a criminal. And again, gang membership and all that. But then there's another level of people. As far as I'm going to step into another area of immigration. As far as that military guy, he needs to stay with his elected officials and get out of the media. The media can't help him. It can only cause people to feel slanted or slighted and harmed by his going to the media. I don't know if his wife is fully into the media thing. She may be a little bit more leery of it because she got to ask some questions and she kind of dialed it back. So again, I don't recommend going to the media. Obviously, you called the senator called somebody, and it worked. It's generally how it works. Well, because they're not going to give in to the media. They're a government entity. Why would they give in to the media? Right. So if you're in the military, think of chain of command. How would you do that? You would go to, when I went to the senator when I was in the media, they looked at me in the military, they looked at me like I was crazy. What do you expect? Right. Every time I went to the senator, until this most recent one, was about my family. It was a family issue. It was my wife, and then it was my wife and kids. They weren't processing my retirement, and I needed to support them. Yeah, they killed they killed Heinz because he got me married. That's weird, isn't it? I don't know if one for Senator Heinz. I don't know if my wife and I would have been married and made it through what was coming against us in Korea. And then the senator from New Jersey, they looked into my retirement, got it moving. And again, it's the best deal the government ever had. They owed me millions right up front. What was happening to that guy up in Detroit at the mayor's hands and all the other people around him in the police department, and he won like $6 million or something. That's what was happening to me. Something very similar. Schoolcraft, all of that. So it was the best deal they ever got, but they never honored it. They were supposed to let me just move on. Right? Well, they're scumbags, man. Don't let them tell you that I did something. Eventually, I said something, of course. Right. It was probably worth more than $6 million, to tell you the truth. It involved everything I told you about spycraft and all of that, and it ties into the death of Jonathan Luna. So they got quite a deal off of that. But they reneged even before they could have not reneged. They never stopped. It's just like the same thing with Project Artichoke. They never stopped. They're liars. Devils and liars. Well, they couldn't depend on me to commit crimes for them. They couldn't depend on me to engage in false statements for them. But of course, I helped plenty of them out of the trouble that they may have gotten themselves into by legitimate action. And again, some of them I helped really did. I didn't even, you don't owe me nothing just because I help you, but right, they did repay a little bit. Right. And God will bless them in the afterlife. You don't get to choose who God selects, all of you. You really don't. And that's kind of the moral of the story. And I told you that was the moral of the story from the beginning. Right. I see the Marshal Service moved on that medical unit, which is great. We increase that as we can, wherever we can. Well, the more law enforcement officers, again, we have CPR trained officers and things like that. But if they have a bag on scene before EMS even gets there, now one of the like a lot of people don't know what they're looking at. But if you see like an ambulance and a fire truck on the side of the road, it's a good indication that law enforcement is somewhere in the area or will be in the area and be engaged in some sort of activity that they believe they need medical protection. Right. Or to help a fire, can help them break in if they need to or something. Right. We have tools, but so does fire. Right. If you're driving down a road in your neighborhood and you see the fire truck on the side of the road, it doesn't seem like they're doing anything, and there's an ambulance there, it's sometimes it's pre-activity for law enforcement. But it's not every time. I mean, you can't just base it on that. Go, oh, cops are going to be here any minute. It's not going to be where you see them. They're just going to pre-stage somewhere, right? Because they can't. If law enforcement tells them we need you at 4 p.m., right? They can't be doing something at 3:30. They have to be free at about 3:30, and then at 4 they'll be ready. Right? They can't go on any calls unless it's a tragedy or something. But it's better that if they're embedded in law enforcement operations, like even an everyday street officer, and he has a bag and all that and trained, then when something happens, they're there, right? You don't have to wait for EMS or even call EMS at that point, unless you believe something big is going to happen. So yeah, the government's like that all the time, and I probably could have sued the government before I even left. Again, you stay. Again, this is why a lot of officers commit suicide, is they can't imagine a life without that job. It's not even money. It's something, yeah, and the CIA knows that, and that's how they're able to push officers to stay past when they need to leave, because their coworkers are essentially uh, criminally operating as spy operators. And then the officer, if it wasn't for, I would tell you it's Reagan's spirit. He was still alive. I mean, he's probably in bed, not even awake when it happened. If it wasn't for his spirit intervening in my life, I wouldn't have probably made it out of the government. I'm laying there in bed. They were doing me pretty heavy. I'm laying there in bed, and the spirit starts talking. And it's weird because when it first happens, you're not even thinking about it. Even though it's happening, you're not even noticing the magnitude of it. So I'm still in the government, and it leads me over to my LES, and it points to the retirement. But this wasn't like at the end. It was, I don't even know, it was probably before Jonathan Luna passed on, and it points to it, but not too much before. Right. And it points to it. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? But it speaks to me, like a deaf man. It's really weird because it means I couldn't hear, spiritually. So I didn't know it was Ronald Reagan at all at that point. Somehow we had a deal. 20 years and sergeant major. Don't ask me, I was asleep. Again, I do have, what do they call that? Can have metaphysical repressed memory. Right. I don't know if it's repressed memory, but if you're asleep, you have memory that could come up, like a repressed memory. And then, the thing happened with Jonathan Luna. Then I went into that final high threat trial. We had some protected witnesses there, and I trained the new guys. And at a certain point, it was weird because I don't know if I was drugged or what, but I could see a terrorist action. And they said, you have to, essentially, the idea is I have to get out of the government, how to get out of my apartment, or there could be, and I don't know what the CIA was manipulating, like a terrorist action, so it would kill me. They don't care, man. They're sick. The people that are corrupt in the CIA are the sickest people that have ever existed, and it involves Comey, Mueller, Brennan, and their offspring that are still in government. That was essentially the gist of it. Maybe God thought that was the only way for me that I would actually break, right, from that whole situation. So I called Jim Spicer, I think, at a certain point, and he said I could come stay over there. And then the next morning, I called my chief, told him what was going on. They could either, and I knew it was the CIA at that point. So it's like right even before I left the government, I knew the CIA was involved because people with credibility told me that. I guess they didn't expect that. I thought they probably thought they controlled everybody. So as far as it being the CIA, again, I'm a military guy. I'm this, I'm that. I've been different things, and I let them have the choice. Either they come clean or I'm out of there. Now they were running. CIA was running several assassination operations in the Marshal Service alone. One was in Arizona. Like the guy that told me about the one in Arizona, I don't know if he knew what I knew in the end about the whole thing. I was on assignment during 9/11, and there was one in Arizona, and he said they got busted by headquarters. Now, what CIA did is they outflanked our headquarters and our internal affairs people because these were their operators. They were stalking a coworker, but again, that's what they were doing to me. But again, it was bigger than stalking. It was Project Operation Midnight Climax, Project Artichoke, MK Ultra, that type of thing. Right. Well, as far as I understand, Jonathan Luna had a case that they didn't want to exist, and he wouldn't let go of it. It probably involved, some sort of sex crime, most likely child porn. Right. Only John. I guess there's a couple other people, but only John Unifa's lady friend can tell you what it was. She probably has an idea. Right. I don't believe it was Cheney and the madam. I don't believe it was related to that. That was the cover story. Well, if Dick Cheney's in office with George Bush, and you make up a story that Jonathan Luna was killed because something related to Cheney, it's a CIA trick. They want to get rid of it and bury it as quick as they can, whether it's true or not. Because when you bury it, then it goes away. We had a ton of government cases. DiBaggio was big on like prosecuting government people. We had some of the cases. I'm like, why didn't you just fire the guy? I mean, come on. Right. But there were some serious cases. Right. Sex crimes. Right. but I don't know what they were working on at the time. And I'm sure they knew Jonathan Luna walked up to me 7 days earlier and started talking to me. And he actually was talking about his friend. So we have a mutual friend, and I'm thinking, what? I just passed her outside walking in here. She looked at me like I'm Bela Lugosi in a vampire film. But it was nice to talk to him because I was, I've never spoke to him, and it's nice to speak to him. I was friendly with a lot of attorneys, and he was just one of the attorneys I never really spoke to except in a court environment. Right. No, I didn't like hang out with attorneys, but we would have discussions outside of the normal discussions that attorneys and that marshals have. Right. And I did do a security assessment. Where did that one go? Maybe I never got to finish it. I did a security assessment for Jamie Bennett. I don't remember finishing it. Maybe I did. I don't know. Right. Yeah, she was threatened by tons of people. Right. Well, she was a big DEA, FBI drug case prosecutor. Right. I don't remember finishing. I remember going to our house and doing the assessment, like doing the basic and speaking to her about something. I forget what it was, what I said. Right. I guess it was also a threat. Maybe she was. I can't remember. Maybe I was taking a judicial security type of thing, but I don't know. But a U.S. attorney security thing. Well, I think it was an assessment. It may have just been a report on a threat. I'm not sure. But long story short, there's battle royales in government, but then there's going over the line. And they went over the line in my life. Again, they interfere in my work all the time. And they didn't want to work. You'd think I would be their best friend. They could sit on their ass all day like they want to. Right. They just got mad because I did the court security and judicial security stuff. And now you're an inspector if you do it. I had to do it plus the other job. But every once in a while, I would be pulled away from the normal deputy duties, and I have to do that. So they would get mad. They're sickos, man. Lazy sickos. So they're going to make you worse than they are. That's their goal with those type of operations, or at least look worse than they do. Again, yeah. So I think there was the reason John was killed. I believe there was a CIA or a CIA crony that was being investigated for a sex crime, and he wouldn't give up. Well, stay peaceful. Praise God.